To say today is a little bit special would be the understatement of the century, because I am here in Tuscany, Italy, in a forest right now with a thoroughbred Italian sports car. This is the Maserati MC Pura, or as they say here in Italy, Pura, which is the facelift for the MC20. Now, it's just been launched in India at a price of 4.12 crore rupees, and while that does sound like a lot, I'm going to drive it and tell you later in the video why it might actually be a bargain. So stay tuned, come along, let's go for a drive. Now, this is a facelift of the MC20, but it might be the most subtle facelift in all of facelift history, and that's by design. Maserati themselves admit that. You really have to know your MC20s and MC Puras to see what's been changed, and it's so small that it's really restricted to a few tiny things. If you come down low, you'll notice that this little bit is sharper than it was before. Yes, it used to be more of a rounded shape, but now it's got a little bit of an edge to it. And where previously this was finished in matte black, it is now finished in gloss black with matte black and carbon fiber, which you see here, as options. All this is to bring it closer aesthetically to the hardcore track-focused GT2 Stradale. And to that end, you can also option forged center lock wheels from the GT2 Stradale, which save 18 kilograms of weight. Now here too, at the rear, the difference is very subtle. It's all to do with this lower valance area, which has gotten a little bit sharper, a little bit more aggressive than it used to be before on the MC20. Maserati says that's because of customer feedback. They said the mid-engine sports car should look like an aggressive thing, and that's why they sharpened things up a little bit. Functionally, it's exactly the same as before. Now here's the deal. The design philosophy of this car, and indeed the MC20 before it, was a split top to bottom philosophy. That means everything that's painted, the top half of the car, represents design, elegance, beauty, and everything you see that's in a darker color, either carbon fiber or black, that represents performance, it's aerodynamics, it's where all the suspension and everything else lives. So those are the ways the design of the car is split in half, and I think that's a great way to look at car design. Given that philosophy, you can bet the paint choice is critical on your MC Pura, and this one is special enough to be celebrated all on its own. It's called Night Interaction, and depending on the light, it could look purple, black, blue, or even bronze. And pair that with the contrast matte painted trident on the engine cover, and this thing just pops. But even in a more ordinary color, the MC Pura is certainly not lacking in drama. Now, as before, this car has excellent butterfly doors, and it's a carbon fiber monocoque with carbon fiber doors. They're incredibly light and easy to open, but of course they take up a lot of space, so that's something you got to keep in mind. This being a carbon fiber monocoque, it's also got a pretty wide sill down here that you have to step over, but once you do, it is a very focused driving position. That's the sound of the V6 Nettuno engine, and it is glorious. You'll hear more of it out on the road. But this is also the Cielo, or the convertible version. So I'm going to quickly show you what it looks like to take the roof down. This can be done at speeds of up to about 40 kilometers an hour. But it certainly does look dramatic. It's a, of course, metal folding hardtop. And it all adds to the drama of this tremendous mid-engine sports car. The whole process takes no longer than 12 seconds, which is quick, but it requires you to use the touchscreen, which is incredibly awkward. And speaking of awkward, though it has not one but two boots, the 50-litre one up front can't hold much, and the 100-litre one placed behind the engine gets incredibly hot. Now inside here, being a mid-engine sports car with a carbon fiber tub, that adds a lot of thickness. It's a structural stability thing, but it also means that it's quite an intimate cabin for two. Yeah, there's definitely no back seats, of course, being a mid-engine car. But even for two, you sit quite close together and the cabin is pretty confined. There's also very little cabin storage with only a glove box, wireless charging tray and a tiny cubby hole under the armrest for the key fob. That's it. It is very much a focused supercar cabin. I mean, there's not a lot of distraction. In fact, Maserati has even shifted from using leather on the dashboard and on the doors to using Alcantara only. That's another change from MC20 to MC Pura. The reason Maserati says is to have fewer reflections or shiny bits to distract the driver at high speed. Just like in a race car. It's a small thing, but it makes a difference. The steering wheel is ever so slightly different. It's a bit flat on the top as well. Well, earlier it used to be round on the top and flat at the bottom. And it is also trimmed in Alcantara. There are some functional buttons here, start, stop and launch, which is very handy. And yes, though there are some controls here which I think are very helpful, most notably the nose lift function, you're going to need that. The quality of the buttons, it does leave a little bit to be desired. They do look a little ordinary for a car of this price. Again, a lot of hand-stitched, hand-finished stuff. This does feel like a very handmade car, and that's for better or for worse. There are some stitches here that look a little bit naff compared to the rest of the car. And yeah, there are some plasticky bits if you look pretty hard lower down. It looks, again, a bit sparse. Now, some people might find that not so great because you want a bit of drama, but really, if you're in this car to drive, and you very much should be, this is what you want, a very focused experience. That said though, this focused approach brings another issue. It is a bit frustrating that so much is in the touchscreen. So AC controls, heated seats, all that in the touchscreen, nothing down here, nowhere to control it, as are most of your car's functions, including opening the roof. That can be a little bit annoying. Worse still, it's not a great touchscreen with laggy responses and inconsistent sensitivity. You'll probably want to pull over to the side to use it. The seats, I will admit, are quite snug. They're very comfortable, and for someone with a smallish frame like myself, they're perfectly fine, but people with larger frames might find these a little bit snug, but I just love the way they're trimmed. This may be a focused supercar offering, but Maserati is still a super luxury brand, and to that end you have access to the extensive Furoseri catalogue of personalization options. There's also a really nice touch, even on this Cielo convertible version, is that the roof has an electrochromatic treatment to it. What that means is at the touch of a button here, it can go from transparent to translucent, let in a little bit more or a little bit less light as you want. So yeah, not only do you have a convertible roof, you have a glass roof as well. Another small change is that where this mode selector used to be an analog dial that was supposed to be reminiscent of classical watches, it's now shifted to a screen, which changes as you change the modes. I suppose that's more like a smartwatch in this modern age. Yes, all things considered, a very, very focused car, a very, very focused cabin, and it puts you right into the mode of driving, and driving very, very fast. So, without further ado, let's get this twin turbocharged V6 Italian Symphony out onto these wonderful Tuscan roads. And let's start with a little bit of etymology. MC20, where did that name come from? Well, it was called MC20 because MC stands for Maserati Corsa, which is the racing division. And 20 was the year the car came out, 2020. Now, this being a facelift of that car, they have chosen to change the name, and it kind of makes sense what they've chosen. MC Pura means pure, and that's just about right for a car like this. Because when you think about it, this is one of the last few remaining really pure mid-engine supercars. Everybody else has moved up into hybrid territory, some have even gone electric. And that means, yes, loads of power up in the 700-800 horsepower region, but also more weight, more complexity, and a whole lot more electronic nannies. This car, it keeps things very, very simple. For one, it's got no hybrid system, it's just got a twin turbocharged V6. Now, I suppose the only way it could be even more pure than that was if it was naturally aspirated, but we'll take this. And this sort of purity of thought that Maserati has put into creating the MC20 and indeed the MC Pura has allowed it to deliver that one thing we look forward to so much from Italian supercars: emotion. And there are a couple of ways that it delivers that. First and foremost, this car is super low, and so are the seats. I've raised it up a little bit, but believe me, this car is as good as being right on the ground. It was parked up next to a Gran Turismo earlier, and side by side, that thing looks like an SUV compared to this. The next thing is the chassis. Well, it's an all carbon chassis, and in fact there's very little metal in this car's construction at all. There are aluminium subframes for the front suspension and for the rear with the engine and the gearbox and suspension. But other than that, it's all carbon fiber, and the body panels are composite. And that means it's light. This Cielo version, the Spider, is just a little bit over 1500 kilograms, but the coupe is well under 1500. And as we all know, a light, stiff chassis lets you do wonders in other areas of the car. Up next, the engine. Yes, the now famous Nettuno, named after Neptune, the god of the sea, who carries the trident with him. You can bet this engine is as mighty as its namesake. It's unchanged from the MC20, and so that means 630 horsepower and 720 Newton meters. And if you're thinking that doesn't sound like a whole lot, remember, this is a light car, so it doesn't have a lot to move either. What's impressive is, even in a seemingly hardcore supercar like this, there is a marked difference between the three drive modes: GT, Sport and Corsa. GT is almost mild-mannered, with metered power delivery, smooth shifts from the 8-speed DCT and even decent refinement, perfect for around town. Sport is ideal for a mountain road with just the right amount of response, more bark from the engine and some leniency from the ESP. Corsa, well, that's best left for the track, as its name suggests. Unlocked by holding down the mode dial for 2 seconds, it makes the engine violently responsive and gear shifts brutal, while taking away almost all safety nets. Probably dial it back to Sport for these small Italian mountain roads. This engine is just full of drama and full of emotion. Of course, a big part of that is the noise, and I will say it's not the prettiest or most beautiful noise in the traditional sense. Let me put it up into sport mode to tell you what I mean. It's not a delicate sound, it's very mechanical, it's very complex, and it's got loads and loads of layers. There's a lot going on. Induction noise, turbo whoosh, overrun chirrup, and yes, the wastegate noise you know from every good turbocharged engine. It's not the most tuneful, but oh boy does it deliver on the drama. Then there is another way you can make your Maserati MC Pura a whole lot more dramatic, and that is by choosing the Cielo version. Now this exposes you to everything in the best possible way. The elements, that beautiful engine note, and it makes things so much more involving. Now unfortunately, this little option does not come cheap. It costs a full 1 crore more than the coupe. That's right. The price shoots up from 4.12 to 5.12 crore for the Cielo version. But I don't know. Should you be willing to pay that? It is certainly quite an experience. And I'm told you lose very little in terms of dynamics. And speaking of the dynamics, that, believe me, is where this car truly excels. Because it's so light and so stiff, they've managed to fit it with supple suspension. So the ride is genuinely incredible. Forget by sports car standards, or supercar standards, this ride is just incredible, full stop. And then there's the steering. Of course, this is a rear wheel drive car, so the front axle is uncorrupted. And they fit it with such a wonderful and amazing steering. I don't know how they've done it. It's incredibly sharp and precise and full of communication and feel. But yet, somehow, it's not stupidly heavy. Around town, it's incredibly easy to twirl. And apart from a few visibility issues, it's never too taxing to drive this supercar. And even when you're on a winding road, it is incredibly manageable. It doesn't feel bitey or sharp or dangerous as it looks from the outside. It's actually very controlled. It'll even slip its tail out from time to time quite easily, but in such a controlled manner that you get comfortable with it. You can do it.
Here too, the drive mode you're in makes all the difference. GT is soft and friendly, while Sport firms up the dampers and loosens off the ESC, allowing you to kick the tail out safely if you're brave enough. But in Corsa, it is unforgiving, with a ride that's stiffer than a block of Italian marble. And combined with that spiky power and twitchy suspension, the MC Pura will hit back at all but the most talented drivers. Curiously, the steering doesn't change with the modes, which makes it even more impressive that it's sharp and weighty when you want it to be, and light and easy when you don't.
I was prepared for a lot of things with this car, such as how flamboyant it would be, or how exciting, but I was not prepared for just how usable it would be. This one has a nose lift just like every other, and Italy's roads are not the best, and it's managed everything just fine. It's even got surprisingly decent ground clearance, despite the fact that you feel like you're sitting on the road itself.
The MC Pura then is in sharp contrast to the lavish Grand Tourers and SUVs in the rest of the Maserati model range, or indeed which the brand has solely produced in the last 2 decades. This is, after all, Maserati's first mid-engine car since the mighty MC12 of 2004, which was based on the Ferrari Enzo. For those mourning the fact that it's not a V8, remember that after it split from Ferrari, Maserati has had to develop its own engine to fit the entire model range, everything from an entry-level SUV to a carbon fiber supercar, while future-proofing for emissions. So a twin-turbo V6 was the best option. In the process, Maserati has cleverly bowed out of the increasingly ridiculous horsepower wars to deliver something arguably even more enticing: emotion, connection, and performance that is actually usable on the road. The fact that it rides as well as a normal car is an unexpected and welcome side effect. The more valid criticism is that this facelift does not make enough changes, because this is essentially a 6-year-old car now, and you expect something fresh and new when you're spending this kind of money. Yes, the money. 4.12 crore rupees is not a small amount, but then you realize that the hybrid mid-engine supercars are now closer to 6 crore rupees. A bigger disappointment is that you have to pay 1 crore rupees more for this Cielo convertible, because it is easily the better version, more of the drama with almost no loss to the driving experience.
To me, it's refreshing in a certain way. It doesn't feel overwhelming like a lot of modern supercars do. It feels like a return to form. These days we've been yearning for the good old days when things weren't so complicated, when life was a whole lot simpler. And that really is the case with this car. Other manufacturers should really take a leaf out of Maserati's book. And even if you must do the hybrids and the EVs in order to sort of meet your emissions regulations and deadlines and cafe norms, do one of these for those of us who love to drive, because really it doesn't get much better than this from the driver's seat.